Good morning. Welcome back to Coffee and Colorful Conversation. Happy Wednesday, everyone. If you follow me on Instagram and other social media, either my other hair color group, Ask the Color Expert, or my personal page, this week I had the hot guy in the doctor's lab coat with the swatches inside of it. And I love that I found that picture. That was from a hair color show many, many years ago. And I remember just being so wowed by that presentation that, they had the thumping music and the smoke and these guys come out, with their ripped up abs with these swatches inside their jackets. And I never forgot it. So today when I wanted to talk about swatches, I dug and dug and dug down so many rabbit holes to find that picture. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did, and I'm going to be using that for some branding with some real live hot guys. So stay tuned for that. But the reason that I wanted to talk about it is if you follow me and you watch these coffee talks, you know that I spend a lot of time on other hair color forums, and I'm usually pretty quiet. I don't really chime in too much because I get a lot of pushback from people who disagree with my opinions, and that's fine, that's okay. I've been doing color for 32 years. I am an independent hair color educator. I share and pay it forward with the tips and techniques that I know work for me in my salon every single day for 32 years. So anything that I say on this talk and in general is my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has techniques that work for them. So I have to preface this entire chat with, this is just my opinion. I think that, I saw a bunch of people saying, I need a swatch book for, Wella color or rust color, whatever. They're moving salons and they're in an absolute panic because they don't have the swatch book to the line that they're taking on. And I keep seeing it and I'm like, wow, this is really a pattern. I don't remember the last time I pulled out a swatch book. What is it about this swatch book that is making people so connected and attached to it? Am I missing something? What is it? And then I realized that these same people that are freaking out about not having a swatch book were trained in color by the first manufacturer sales rep class, first product knowledge class that they ever had in most likely the first salon that they worked in, taught the class from the swatch book, holding up the swatch book, talking about the swatches and why to pick what, and relied heavily on their own manufacturer's swatch book in order to teach. And it's unfortunate that as well as saying to rely on the swatch book, they also relied on a method of formulation that, again, in my opinion, is not correct. And unfortunately, today in 2018, color is still being taught that way. So how we're taught in our first manufacturer class or, from our first salon that we work in is go to the swatch book, show the client the swatch book, and whatever color they pick, that's what you use. If anybody watching can relate to this, please say, oh yeah, in the comments. Yes, that's the way I was taught. Because every one of us were. The person stood up in front of the class and they, my first one was matrix. I went to a matrix class and the person, that taught the class was holding up the swatch book and he says, if a client likes the 7M, like Mary, Mocha, that's what you're going to use. And if they picked out a 7M and they're a 5, that's 2 levels of difference. So you're going to do 7M and 20 volume. And knowing what I know now, 7M with 20 volume on a level 5 is going to be very, very crazy warm because it's a warm shade and you're lifting 2 levels. So the hair naturally is going to be warm with the underlying pigment contribution. So you're creating a major vibrant red, and all the person wanted was a 7M, a little bit of a chocolatey brown. So This continues and it makes me crazy. I have a headache right now just preparing for talking about this. I had a headache this morning because I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback from people about this particular chat because they're not going to agree with me. And that's okay. If you're doing what the Matrix person taught you, or the Wella person, or the Redken person, or whoever taught you that, you hand the swatch chart to the client, they pick, that's what you use, and that's working for you, God bless, keep doing it. Do not change it because I'm telling you that I disagree with it. So most people, when they watch something like this, they're looking for more and they want a better way to do things and they want to earn a better living and live a better life. So that's why I do this. This is why I share. But take what you want, leave the rest behind. If this doesn't resonate with you and you don't think that this is something that you want to learn about, turn off your Facebook right now, go have your coffee, and forget that this ever happened. But I hope that this helps people who are frustrated. I was in a salon getting a blow dry, and the woman next to me had 50% gray hair, 50% that like dirty blonde level 6 hair. And the colorist came over to her and whipped out the giant. This isn't a typical swatch book. This is the only thing I had at home. This is actually a Redken level finder. But this hair colorist pulled out the swatch book, laid it in the client's lap. This is like going to Home Depot or, you know, a Benjamin Moore paint store and letting somebody loose in the paint swatch section and saying, pick a color for your room, and taking it home and you put it on the wall and you're like, oh my gosh, this looks nothing like the color that I picked. How many of you have had that happen? Because I know I have. I remodeled my salon 4 years ago and I have never, I'm a hair colorist. I do color every day. I pride myself on being able to see the nuances and the tones in colors that other people don't see. But gray paint, as in gray hair, can be so subjective and different. I had to use in my salon 3 different colors of gray paint in each room for the whole salon to look like it's the same color. So that's a perfect example of what goes wrong when you rely on a swatch. So I go to the paint store. I know exactly the color gray that I want. I have my tile already picked out. My floor is already picked out. The paint is like everything. It's the whole background. And I'm very careful to not have my walls fight with my client's skin tone. You should really have the palest. White is actually perfect for walls, but it can get a little boring in salons. So I didn't want bright white, and I didn't want anything too warm, and I didn't want anything too cool to make everybody look washed out and have dark circles. So I'm going to the paint store and I'm getting the little pieces of paper and I tape them up on the wall, and trust me, they mean nothing. Don't waste your time on those little pieces of paper because the color doesn't look anything like that. So then I graduated to getting the little pints of the actual paint, painting it on a big piece of sheetrock and leaning it against the wall, and that was a whole different shade from doing that. And then it was daytime, nighttime. In the daytime, the one gray looked very green, and I didn't want that. At nighttime, it was the perfect gray, but it's not always going to be nighttime in the salon. So I took a lot of time, more than most people would ever do, but it's because I'm a colorist and it was really important to me. And I cannot tell you how many clients have painted their home one of the colors in my salon because I took so much time finding that perfect gray. And now they just come in and say, Elaine, what's this color? And I write it down for them and they go buy it and they paint their walls. So if you're relying on swatches, the manufacturer's swatches, most of them, and I can't speak for all of them, maybe technology has gotten better because I don't use them anymore, so I don't know. But most of them are done on synthetic hair, and it's white hair. And if you're anything like me, I don't deal with white hair a whole lot. I deal with gray hair and mixture of gray hair and pigmented hair. So on a swatch, that shade that they're showing you is being done on white, sometimes yak hair, sometimes just synthetic wiggy hair, and I don't think ever human hair because human hair swatches are very expensive and the manufacturers would not spend that amount of money for those little tiny swatches in salons all throughout the world, and the country and the world, it would be very cost prohibitive for them to use it on real hair. So what I recommend is, if you are very reliant on swatch books, which if you train with me or you come to any of my classes, you will no longer be reliant on them. That's a whole other story. But if you are, please remember what you're looking at. You're looking at a color that was done on pure white hair by itself. I don't even know where they do them or how they do them. I don't see anybody standing there painting them. It has to be done by a machine. So my point is, it's not an accurate representation of what that color is going to look like. So Beth Minardi years ago taught me and others to buy our own human hair swatches and make our own swatches. So if you're unsure, if you take on a new color line and you're like, oh, I don't know if their 7C, their copper is going to be like crazy copper compared to the beigey copper that I use right now. You always have that when you're using a new color. I still have it after 32 years. I want to know what it's going to do before it does it on the head. That's when I'll pull out my human hair swatches. There's a company in New York City. It's called International Hair Importers. And you call them and you tell them, I want, for me, I did 50% gray, 50% level 5, because for me, that is the number one thing that I encounter in the salon, a level 5 client starting to go gray. So that was a good base point to start from. I know that if the person's a level 6, they're a little bit lighter. If they're level 4, they're a little bit darker. And most people lie in that 4, 5, 6 range. It's very rare that you get a 7, 8 or a 1, 2, 3 that's doing anything crazy with their hair. So these swatches, this comes straight across on it almost looks like the car wash flaps. And I cut it into these individual swatches. And if you look close, you can see I left some of the hair up top to show you what the swatch started out to be. So you can see the 50% gray, 50% just blah brown. And then this particular swatch, I used 7N by itself with 20 volume. So it shows me exactly what a level 7N is going to do to a 5. Something that I share in my hair color classes is, and I'm getting off topic because I'm so ADD, but I like sharing this. So speaking of swatches. So I have my swatches, and these all started out the same. They were all 50% gray, 50% level 5. And I pass this around the room when I do hair shows to show people. We all get caught up in the 20, 30, 40 volume thing, which is also a misconception in formulation. If you were taught by a hair color manufacturer, they say, take your swatch book, pick your color. We used 7M as an example earlier. And if you're going from a 5 to a 7, you're going to use 20 volume because you're moving up 2 levels. If you were going from a 5 to an 8, you would use 30 volume. So I did this to show people, when you're standing in the dispensary and you're chewing off your fingernails saying, oh my gosh, do I use 20, 30, or 40? I'm here to tell you, I've been doing color for 32 years. I have used 30 volume on a single process retouch one time in my entire career, and I hated how it turned out, and I've never done it again. Because I subscribe to this way of formulating. This is the universal law of color, and this is what gives me the result that I want. So people say, oh, I use 30 volume all the time. It's lighter, it's brighter, it's this. If that is working for you, again, keep doing it. Do not change it on my account. But I want to show you what I saw happen with these swatches. So this first one is 7N with 20 volume. I got excellent gray coverage. It's warm because it should be, because I'm going from a level 5 to a 7, and it's straight N. So it's going to allow for the natural warmth that comes out in the hair. Pretty result, covered the gray. Here is the same exact brand, same exact tube of 7N with 30 volume. The only visible difference, I know you guys can't really see this as well on the camera as I'm seeing it, but the only difference between the 30 volume and the 20 volume is you can see a little bit of the gray has stayed behind. It did not cover the gray as well. So I see people on the forum saying, oh, resistant gray, bump it up to 30 volume, or, go in and pre-soften. No, none of that is true, in my opinion. This is the same 7N with 40 volume. If you look at this, look at those three swatches. They don't look any different. The only difference is the percentage of gray that was covered. The 7N, I'm backwards, the 7N by itself covered the best, gave the best result. It's a rich, nice color, it's even, and it covered the gray. The 30 volume left some of the gray behind. The 40 volume left more gray behind, but it's no lighter. Look at that. It is no lighter. So everyone is scared to death of the 20, 30, 40. Oh my gosh. The difference between 20, 30, and 40 is the oxygen. It's the force of how it goes into the hair. So when you use a higher volume developer, you're blasting that cuticle open faster, causing more damage. Everything is going to be raised, rough, and dry. And your color result is no lighter. You're kidding yourself if you think that 40 volume is giving you more light. In order to get more light, my target goal for this client was to get them to a true level 7. So what I needed to do to get a true level 7 was to pull out a level 9 color with 20 volume. And if you put this swatch that was done with a 9 up against a natural level swatch, and you put it against the level 7, that is the only one that truly turned it into a 7. Where's my 7 on here? Sorry, this is awkward. So, where is it? There's a 7, and this was done with a 9. So that is how the 7 is created on a 5, and that's a whole other class and a whole other lesson. But the point is, you're probably having formulation issues because you're so reliant on the swatch book, and the swatch book does not tell the truth. The swatch book tells the truth of what that color is going to do on white yak fake hair, and that's fabulous, but nobody walking into your salon is a yak, and they don't have fake synthetic hair. So a better thing to do is either buy these swatches and do them yourself, or get yourself to a class, hopefully mine, where you understand that law of color and how to formulate properly. I never, ever, ever have to rely on a swatch book. I don't really understand what it's bringing to people's lives, except for right now I just got free color from Illumina, and it's these pastels. I am not a pastel colorist. I am not a funky unicorn colorist. So that, I have a girl coming in on Monday that wants lavender. And Wella sent me these Illumina shades, and there's a bright purple and a dark purple. So that is when I will resort to a swatch book, because I want to see how vibrant is it, how many levels are there between the two purples, what happens if I put the two together, and then I will still pull out a mannequin head, put the actual color on a pre-lightened piece, and see it for myself. I'm not going by that swatch book because I don't know what that swatch is underneath. So I hope that if you're watching this, this will change how you look at color. And instead, when a client, this is my favorite thing to do, rather than spend time with swatch books, I bought these very inexpensive clip-in bangs at a wig store. There's a mall near me that has one of those Asian, they have a million kinds of extensions and wigs and just all kinds of hair pieces. I think this was like $14, something like that, best money ever spent. We all have that client that if you're using Swatch Book, they're going shopping like they're in the, Benjamin Moore store in the Swatch Book, and they're like, oh, that's pretty. And it is pretty in the Swatch Book on a piece of hair this big. They say, oh, I love that. But they look like me. And they're looking at the color as if they're looking at the color that they're picking out in a car or a shirt or a dress, like it's a pretty color. And then I say to them, wow, are you sure you're ready for that? Because this is what I see. 3 weeks from now, tears coming in, I want my blonde back, and then I'm spending 6 hours getting her blonde back. And then miraculously, they think that you shouldn't charge them because they made a mistake and picked something they thought that they would like. That's not our fault, and it should not be free of charge. But we've all been there. So now as a 32-year veteran that has seen it all and heard it all, I say, wow, Sue, that's a really big change. You've been blonde for a really long time. I've been doing you blonde for 15 years. You got married to your husband as a blonde. Has your husband ever seen you brown? I know you're saying it's your natural color, but do you really know what your natural color is? And most of them will say, oh, yeah, I know, I like it dark. And I say, okay. And then I just pull out my little clip-on bangs. And I usually, this is the trick, I usually pull out a shade because I don't have a lot. I have like 4 of them. So, excuse me, I will intentionally pull out a shade lighter than what they are picking. And I'll tell you why. Because people always freak out and say you made them black when you put a low light in, it's a level 9. You know, it's just human nature. And I'm a blonde and I know that because I've been there. So I pull out these clip-in bangs, and this is, say, like 2 levels lighter than the shade that she's picking in the swatch book. And I put it right on her hair, and I cover up all of her blonde. Obviously, I would move her bangs if I was in the salon. I'm just doing this really quickly. But I put it right on her face where she cannot miss seeing it and go like this. And she goes, oh my God, no, that's so dark. And I'm like, okay, well, that was like 2 levels lighter than the little swatch that you just picked. So happy we did this. So how about we talk about this? How about, I know you're bored and you need a change. So how about if we start to incorporate, everything's backwards. I'm sorry, I know I look ridiculous. Incorporate pieces of this away from your face. Let's start back here and start adding pieces of that. That's pretty. I'm okay with that. And then each visit, we'll add a few more. And I can literally show her, I can separate these strands and show her what it's going to gradually look like. So how much better is that consultation that I know exactly what I'm going to get when I leave, and there's no freak out, and there's no redo, and there's no color remover mess, and bringing up all the warmth, and it reverting back dark, and all the things that we all deal with was all avoided by a $14 clip-in bang. So it's live and learn, guys. I didn't know this when I started out, but God, do I wish that I did. All the corrective stuff that I could have avoided by doing that. The client who, like me, all of a sudden says, every woman should be a redhead. I go to famous hair colorists all the time. I walk up to them at hair shows and I say, if you could do anything to my color, what would you do? You know, I always have been the same color. I'm so boring. And every single one, without fail, says strawberry blonde. I don't see myself as a strawberry blonde. I see myself as, I always wear, as you notice, always blue, you know, gem colors, very bright blues, pinks. Like, I look best in cool colors. So I'm always striving to be the coolest blonde that I can be while covering my gray. And that, again, is a whole other class. So every single one says strawberry blonde. So here is a strawberry blonde clip-in bang. Like, I still, when I see this on myself, say, oof, no, not happening. But isn't it better for me to find out putting a clip-in bang in than to take all the hard work that it has taken to make me a cool-ish blonde and dump strawberry all over and then say, oops, sorry, I didn't want that, and have to remove it? So again, swatches are great for the manufacturer to show us the tone in the hair. I like it for that. I like to see what they consider a BR or a CR or a C or an RR. Like, I like it for that, but that means nothing to the guest. So stop putting the swatch book in their lap and thinking that it's going to help. It's not going to help. It's just going to confuse them more. It's like equivalent to my dentist that I used to work for when I was in high school. Love him still. They now do fillings that are the color of your teeth. So if I have a cavity, which, touch wood, I haven't had one in a while, but if I do, now I will say to him, please use the expensive ones that are the color of my teeth. I don't want a mouthful of metal anymore. And he will match it to my teeth. Imagine if your dentist handed you a ring of teeth color and said, here, pick your tooth color. What color do you think matches your teeth? Like, would you run out of that chair? Because I know I would, if my dentist asked me to pick my tooth color. He's the dentist. He's in charge of my tooth color and matching it. And he does that every day, all day long. And that's what you do as a hair colorist. You color hair all day long. And if you're doing it long enough, you know what a level 7M is going to do to a 5 because you've used it. And you've either used it and said, oh shit, that's too warm, or you've used it and said, oh my God, that's now my go-to milk chocolate color. And that sticks in your head. And then the next time you're faced with that same scenario, you say, oh, I remember on Margie how much she loved that 7M. And Lisa is a level 5. She has a very similar situation to Margie. So I'm going to use that 7M. And that's okay. That is a good way to use your swatch book. But if you're handing the client the swatch book saying, pick a shade, any shade, and they pick a shade, and you go back in the dispensary and, oh, ADD. So I started with the story of getting a blow dry and the colorist putting the swatch book in the client's lap. So she had like level 6, I think I said level 6 natural and like 40% gray. And she picked out a strawberry level 7 color. So the colorist goes in the back, picks the exact tube of the color that was on the swatch to cover her hair. Now, what do you think happened when that 7CR went on 50% gray, 50% level 7? It was hotter than hot roots. Then she proceeded to pull all the color through. She like squirted the ends of the hair with water and pulled the whole color through to the ends. It was a hot mess because you can't rely on the swatch to tell you what that swatch, we are not painting on a blank canvas. That is going to be wallpapered in my studio when I do education out of it in St. Pete. We are not painting on a blank canvas. It's not a white piece of paper. It's a piece of paper with a little bit of gray tones, a little bit of brown tones, a little bit of leftover yellow tones from an old blonde. Like you're working with 3 different tones from the starting level, and then you're incorporating another color. So when we formulate the truth of what's going on, when you reach for that 7 and you're putting it on a level 5, the 2 are meeting in the middle. So when you're formulating for a level 5 natural and you're using a 7, what you're creating is in fact a 6. So when you formulate thinking you're getting the 7 may be the hump that you need to get past that orange that's so prevalent and lives at that level 6. That's the issue. And that's what I talk about in my Let's Kick Brass online course. I just did one a few weeks ago. I'm doing another one November 11th. I've gotten so many emails from people saying, oh my gosh, I missed it. I hear it was great. Can I get in on the next one? So I will be putting the link on this page. Stay tuned for that. The next one is November 11th at 7 p.m. And I talk all about why we're getting brassy results. And this is an example. We're using a 7 on a 5, thinking that we're getting her to a 7, when in reality, we're getting her to a 6. And if you pull up the chart, Google remaining pigment contribution, and 50 million charts will show up of what lands. And if you have my book, I have a whole chapter on remaining pigment contribution. It's your best friend. I always tell people, tattoo it on your ass, do what you need to do so that you never forget this chart. Because it will show you, before you even pull that tube out and mix it in the bowl and even attempt to put it on her head, it's going to show you that you're making her a 6, and 6 is where orange lives. So if you don't understand that you're doing a combination of the 2, then that is what's happening, and that's why you're frustrated. So I hope that this chat about swatch books helped you. If you're relying on them, stop. If you're relying on them and it's working for you, have at it, enjoy the ride, but it could be better and it could be more predictable for you. And I hope that you will come to one of my classes and learn about what really goes on in hair color when we're formulating. You know, like I said, I used 30 volume once, and it was on a blonde that I use a 10.1 on, who lands in that like newborn chick yellow color that I hate. She loves it. I hate it. So I was like, oh, everybody on these forums swears by using 30 and 40 volume. Let me try that. And it was worse. All it does when you use a higher volume is bring out more of the contributing pigment. It's brassier by using the higher levels of developer. So remember, your strength is in the tube, not in the developer. I hope if you've got nothing else out of this talk with my crazy clip-in bangs, that you understand that. Go get yourself some clip-in bangs and throw your damn swatch charts out. And join me next Wednesday on Coffee and Colorful Conversation. See you soon.